All right, great to have you back. You're still watching This Morning Live, reaching you from the studios of LN 24/7. And we are on to the agenda segment. And I tell you something, this is a very serious discussion we are going to have right here. In the past couple of days, Israel and Iran have been engaged in serious exchange of, missiles, attacks, and all of that. Israel and Iran at war as we speak right now. And that forms the focus on the agenda on this segment. The simple topic we have for you right here is one that really rocking global markets and hitting close to home. You will understand what we're saying. On the agenda, we'll be discussing Israel and Iran war, the implications of this war, and what it means for Nigeria. I welcome you back, onto this segment. Mono in Abuja is also still here with us. Mono.
You're absolutely right, Emenike. As Israel and Iran trade airstrikes, sending oil prices soaring. Brent crude jumped over 10% on Friday last week before settling a barrel, and the world's eyes are on the Strait of the Hormuz, which is a vital oil choke point. So what does this mean for Nigeria? Emenike, you have the talking points.
A very good question we are asking, what it means for Nigeria when countries like Israel and Iran are in a serious face-off. At the moment, talks are going on as to possible end of the war. But let's break down the implications of this Israel and Iran conflict from its impact on oil markets to trade disruptions, and of course what it means for Nigeria's economy. All right, that's what we shall be looking at, the talking points on this occasion. And we are here to look at the impact on oil and non-oil producing countries, the geopolitical interest and trade disruption, and what all of this, mean for Nigeria. We are joined by two great experts in the industry to help us make sense of this next conversation. We have Fidel Amakie Owusu, an international relations and security expert. He is also a geopolitical and security advisor at Rivalries Incorporated and founder, CEO of DefSec Analytics Africa Limited. That's Fidel Amakie Owusu. We also have Felix Ije, a renowned economics specialist in Nigeria's energy sector. Gentlemen, welcome to this segment on This Morning Live. Fidel and Felix. All right, Mono, those are our guests on this occasion. Let's bring you into this conversation, Abuja.
All right, Emenike, thank you very much. I also have Professor Jidere. He is an international relations expert of international relations, and of political science in Rural University. Thank you so much, Prof. Fidel, you're live with us. Thank you with us this morning on the show. So first up, we'll look at the impact of oil and non-oil producing countries, because we have to look locally beyond the politics of who is right, is Iran right, is Israel right. But of course, you're aware that Iran is a major OPEC player, over 3 million barrels of oil daily, most heading to China. If Israel disrupts Iran's out, China may buy more oil elsewhere, which will potentially drive up global prices. Emenike.
Indeed. And I also tell you, also warned that a prolonged disruption could cut 1.75 million barrels per day of Iranian supply, only partially, and could offset about OPEC and spare capacity of about 3.5 million barrels from Saudi Arabia, the UAE. And of course, we have a visual to make sense of these facts. Let's get some graphics on the global supply that is now at risk. That is what we are looking at, talking about the implications of the Israel and Iran war. First, let's take a look at the bar chart, and it clearly illustrates the delicate balance in global oil production. On one side, we have Iran's current oil production at 3.3 million barrels per day, and right beside it, you can see the OPEC and spare capacity, which stands at a very similar 3.5 million barrels per day. Now, this spare capacity is the cushion the world relies on in terms of disruption. Let's also give you that below the chart, you will see a map. We have highlighted Iran itself along with its major buyer. China also marked are the key OPEC countries like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, which hold much of the crucial spare capacity. Now, in essence, this graphic illustrates just how finely balanced the global oil market is, and how any major disruption could quickly impact prices and the pump price we are talking about, Mono.
MNK, so let's go straight to the conversation now. Thank you for that wonderful breakdown. So we have Fidel. Fidel, let's start with you. How critical is Iran's role in global oil markets, and what could supply disruption mean for countries like Nigeria, which competes in the same market? I know you're itching to give us an overview of what is actually happening, so you can do that before your comments on the global oil market.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I greet your distinguished listeners and my co-panelists. Firstly, I would like to say that this war has been in the offing for a long time, because Iran, an independent country, has been determined to proceed with its nuclear ambition. Now, nuclear ambition does not necessarily mean that it wants to produce weapons, but countries have the right to pursue civilian nuclear ambitions, like we use nuclear energy for research, for energy, and for other things that are necessary for the development of a country. However, because of its relationship with, or its cold relations with Israel, and the saber rattling, the use of intemperate words and concomitant tensions, Israel has also determined to stop Iran from going further with its nuclear ambition, because Israel suspects that Iran does not only seek to pursue civilian nuclear ambitions, but it also wants to attain the nuclear weapon, which by any ways Israel is known to have. And Israel feels that if Iran has that, it is going to be a threat to it. And over the years, Israel has threatened, especially under Benjamin Netanyahu, the current prime minister, Israel has threatened to Iran. Attack has happened, but the recent one has been the one that has directly hit the nuclear facilities of Iran. And this is where. But moving on to your question. Now, Iran's oil, because of sanctions, is not bought by so many countries. However, it forms part of the component of the global supply that keeps global oil prices stable. So, despite the fact that some countries, as a result of sanctions, will not buy Iranian oil, its existence or its supply in the global market helps stabilize prices. So that is very important, because some people do not understand why countries do not buy Iranian oil when there is a conflict. and the supply that disrupt Iranian supply, it affects global markets. So that is the reason. Secondly, Iran is um, close to the Strait of Hormuz, a very critical oil producing or artery where oil produced in the Persian Gulf reaches the Arabian Sea onto the Indian Ocean, which is very critical. And so the conflict in that region, Iran can, because the strait is a strait, a narrow sea that can easily be disrupted or be closed to civilian maritime traffic. And so that is also very critical. And that also disrupts oil supply. Because when that happens, then it means you're going to experience some hikes in oil prices. In fact, as a result of recent discoveries around the world and the production of oil, the Strait of Hormuz has not been very so intense as it were before. Before, it would have led to very serious hikes in what we see now is not even as serious as it would have been some decades ago, or let's say 10 years ago. However, it is still significant because countries like Nigeria, Ghana, and others that have liberalized the oil markets, that is removal of subsidies, are going to have consumers of oil being affected. But I think as time goes on, the economists and others will understand this better. Thank you very much for.
All right. Okay. We have Professor Abubakar standing by. Emenike, over to you.
Right, and when countries like Israel and Iran are in a phase of oil comes, into focus. And Prof, I would love to welcome you into this conversation and ask the alternatives in this situation. And if China turns to Nigeria, for instance, to replace the disrupted Iranian oil right now. How ready is Nigeria in that sector? How ready could Nigeria be to ramp up production and capitalize on this demand?
Actually, at the moment, owing to the situation Nigeria is experiencing, Nigeria itself is one of the major importers of oil rather than exporting. At the moment, Nigeria imports refined oil up to about 52% of its local demand, though it is also an exporter of crude oil. At the same time, Nigeria is still importing gas, which of course Nigeria has one of the largest gas reserve in the world, precisely about 600 trillion cubic feet, which is proven to be in Nigeria. Unfortunately, as a result of the fact that Nigeria's oil industry is currently facing serious crisis of the fact that our refineries are not working, and that as a result of that, Nigeria also is importer. Ordinarily, this crisis would have given Nigeria a very big opportunity to export oil as a result and then earn more money. Conversely, Nigeria is likely to face difficult challenges owing to the fact that if the oil prices hikes as a result of escalation of the conflict, Nigeria will also be importing oil and gas at the high price.
What you're saying, in effect, is that the impact of this war in the Middle East between Israel and Iran, Nigeria needs to position herself right now because it doesn't look so much like Nigeria is an exporter to that, big amount of oil that we asked earlier on. If China, for instance, turns to Nigeria, what would Nigeria do? Is Nigeria really prepared for it? But let's bring in Felix into this conversation. Felix, nice to have you, on this occasion. We are looking at the implications of the war. What's your take, in this whole situation, talking about the oil sector and the market? I see. Mono, it looks like we're having some glitches right now with our guests, but hoping that they will rejoin us, to advance this conversation. This is really important when it comes to the implication of the war going on in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. Can we have Mono's audio? I don't seem to hear Mono in Abuja. Hello, Mono? Hello? Okay. We will rectify that.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you so much, Mono. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so let's go ahead. We have Dr. EJ joining us from we're sorry that we're a little bit late into the conversation, but as an economics, what is your perspectives of the implications of this war and what it portends for Nigeria's oil and gas sector? Is there an opportunity here, and how do we navigate this opportunity? Dr. Felix.
All right. Mono, we seem to be having issues with connectivity, with our guests. But I believe you have Felix EJ right now. Please, you may repeat your question to him.
Hello, Doctor. Are you with us? Dr. Felix. Okay,
just go ahead with your question for him.
My question is on the economic implications of this war with regards to Iran's control of the global shale supply and what Nigeria, what it means for Nigeria. What are the implications of this war for the oil and gas sector? That's the question.
Okay, I think I can't hear you very well because hello.
Can you hear me?
Hello. There is a lot of noise at the background there.
If you had the question from Mono, can you go ahead? We're trying to fix the feedback sound. Can you hear me, Felix? All right. Okay, Mono, while we attempt to tidy up, the audio, let's advance this conversation. Let's get into, our second talking point, which is on geopolitical interest and trade disruptions. We also heard about the Strait of Hormuz, which is a global oil lifeline, carrying about 20 to 26% of the world's oil trade, and that's roughly 20 million barrels per day. Iran has threatened to block this route before, and Friday's strikes have also raised the stakes one more time. So, Mono, while we attempt to bring back our guests, this is our next line of conversation: geopolitical interest and trade disruption, looking particularly Iran's threat to shut down the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, most exactly. No disruptions have been reported yet, but a prolonged conflict could choke this waterway, potentially pushing oil prices to $100 or even up to $130 per barrel, according to Unicredits and JP Morgan analysts. OPEC plus just boosted production by 411,000 barrels for July. But escalation could derail that. And here is the breakdown. The map clearly shows the straight position between Iran, Oman, and UAE. Its strategic importance cannot be overstated. And of course, it also highlights the fact that 20 million barrels of oil per day pass through this particular strait. So that's a staggering 26% of the entire global oil trade. And this illustrates just how crucial this waterway is to the world's energy supply. And beside the map, you see a line graph. It shows the recent surge in Brent crude oil prices, specifically on June 13th. Prices jumped up to 13% as at last week, reaching around $75 per barrel. And this recent volatility underscores the sensitivity of the market. MNK, we have Fidel with us. Hopefully, you can go ahead with the question.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Thank you so much for the infographics there. Let me ask Felix this question. The Strait of Hormuz, blockade, could spike of shipping costs and oil prices. How would this, impact Nigeria's economy if it happens, and given Nigeria's reliance on imported refined fuel? Felix. All right. Okay. Felix, while you attempt to reconnect Fidel Amaki Owusu, can you take that question? I'm looking at how, if this Hormuz is eventually blocked, how would it impact on Nigeria's economy? Of course, Prof told us that Nigeria most right now is not on export but import, of refined fuel.
Yeah. So, thank you very much. A very important one. Firstly, I would like to say that the map that was displayed was there was a little error, some errors there where Oman is located, where Saudi Arabia is located, and all that. Maybe we have to come up so that our viewers can get a proper appreciation of what is happening there. Now, one thing about the Strait of Hormuz is that Iran, in the decade, decided to build military that can shut down the Hormuz, Strait of Hormuz. Now they decided that, well, let's brings in 80 new craft carrier and air strike group, very enormous, powerful. So Iran decided to build small boats that can move fast and dangerous, and can be, because then they will bombs and really hit a bigger ship, United States and other powers in the region, in order to actively close the strait. So this means that it has that capability to do that for a short period or a long period, or whichever means it can really affect the flow of traffic in that region. A million barrels of oil per day, that is very impactful. But in the case of Nigeria, yes, the president or the government removes from petroleum product. This means that consumers currently bear direct much of the cost of petroleum. Now, if this continues, it means that the people are going to face it, because when oil prices increase, it affects all the factors of production, transportation. So if you were a factory worker and you were moving from to, let's say, another state for production, you are going to pay more. That your purchasing power or the kind of income that you have is going to drop. Again, you're going to face general rise in the prices of goods and services. Because if I am moving goods from the ports in Lagos to, let's say, Ibadan, I used to pay naira per unit, and I'm currently going to pay 150 as a result of the hike in petroleum prices. It is going to affect consumer prices or affect of the general population. Now, even for countries that do not, import the final petroleum products, it is good. They are good because as long as your system is open to the world market, you are going to be affected. Whichever way you find yourself, you are going to be affected massively. And even for countries that heavily subsidize petroleum products, they are still going to have their budgets stressed, because if you are subsidizing petroleum products, then it means that currently you will need more money to subsidize such products in order to cushion your citizens. So whatever happens in the Persian will have a lot of implication Nigeria and for the of thank
Absolutely, absolutely. Prof, this Strait of Hormuz is really in focus right now, and Iran has always, on the slightest provocation, threatened to block it. What would this mean, for global trade? Is a global trade route. What would this mean if Iran carries out this threat of blocking the Strait of Hormuz?
Actually, as Fidel Amoki emphasized, I think he has said a lot about that. What actually add, as he earlier corrected, the short is that map of the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is lying between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. It begins from the United Arab Emirates and ends at the beginning of the territory of Oman. And that is exactly the point where the major or the largest seaport, we call as Badr Abbas. And the Badr Abbas is also housing the headquarters of the Iranian Revolutionary. Now, not only that, Badr Abbas is one of the main and major ports in the Middle East, especially for some countries at the Persian Gulf, because Iran is lying between the the Gulf of the Persian Gulf and the Caspian Sea, and on the Caspian Sea you have countries such as Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. These countries rely on Iran to import commodities. Strait of Hamas is not only important for oil and gas export, as Felix Amoiki mentioned, it is Fidel Amoiki mentioned, actually it is a route that can actually affect other commodities. And he gave good example as on how other commodities will be affected. Actually, the Strait of Hormuz, everybody knows that it is feeding many, many countries. For example, Iran itself, Iraq, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates. All the Gulf states rely heavily on the Strait of Hormuz for import and export. It is the route that this Gulf countries import and export commodities and other and oil and gas and other goods, and that as Fidel mentioned, the closure of that of the Strait of Hormuz will actually affect economic activities not only in the region, but it will also go to what we do to affect other important countries, as I mentioned, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Kazakhstan countries. So this travel hormones is so significant in the international trade relations and trade routes, and the closure will certainly affect global economic prices. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mono, you're still with us in Abuja.
Good to be back. Well, that sets up our final talking point. What does this mean for Nigeria? So let's get to it. Nigeria, a major oil exporter, could see a windfall from higher oil prices, boosting government revenue and improving our trade balance. So the big issue now is we should not forget 2022, when oil hit $130 per barrel during the Russia-Ukraine war. Nigeria saw little benefit due to production bottlenecks and mismanagement. And MNK, if you recall, if you move past that 2022 to this time, we've seen increase in oil production locally. So I wonder if this time it will be different. Back to you, MNK.
Also bringing in risk, talking about whether anything will be different this time around, like exchange rate, volatility. The Naira hovering at 1,550 Naira to $1 could really face more pressure, driving up import costs and inflation, as we discuss this matter. And then also the Nigeria's oil economy at a glance, perhaps we'll put up that infographics before the question, like you mentioned, the pie chart clearly illustrating that in 2024, a massive 88% of Nigeria's total exports came from oil. This highlights the country's heavy reliance on this single commodity. Now, the line graph also compares the current Naira exchange rate, which stands at 1,550 Naira per US dollar as of June 2025 to 2022 peak, when oil prices surged to $130 per barrel. Now, despite high oil prices in 2022, the Naira hasn't seen corresponding gain, suggesting other economic factors at play here, Mono.
All right. So let's get straight to the conversation. Let me start with Prof. I beg your pardon, Fidel, because he is in Nigeria. So, Professor, why didn't Nigeria capitalize on the 2022 oil price spike? And what geopolitical factors must allow for us to benefit from a potential 2025 surge? Before we come to Fidel.
Welcome again.
Yeah, I was talking about the fact that Nigeria did not capitalize on the oil surge in 2022. So what difference will this escalation between Iran and Israel make in terms of our ability to be able to capitalize and strengthen our oil production and the oil and gas sector in generally to rev up our production capabilities?
Yeah, this is a lesson that Nigeria is supposed to learn. As you said, Nigeria failed to learn from the volatility of the international system or international market. We still actually, for so many domestic factors, have not put our oil sector and oil industry in the proper condition. If Nigeria had stabilized its oil industry properly, Nigeria would have now been benefiting from this issue. And as I said earlier, Nigeria, despite the fact that it is one of the major oil producing countries in the world, today is the 19th importing country in the world. And from an exporter, the number 6 or 7 exporter, you now come to become a 19 importer of oil. There's a serious crisis, there's a serious problem in our oil sector. And this is supposed to be a very good lesson for Nigeria to put up serious effort to put our oil industry, to fix our oil industry so that we can actually sustain our economy in the world volatility of oil. Oil is one of the most sensitive commodities in the world. Very small crisis can hike the price of oil. And as we are seeing now, 2 days back, the price of oil went high. Fortunately, it has been stabilized. But only if the war continues and it escalates, as I said earlier, is going to be a problem. So for Nigeria, it is a very good lesson if we want to learn from history and we want to learn carefully and respond to the international situation, the international system. We need to fix our domestic economy, particularly the oil sector, because the oil sector is the major source of Nigeria's export. And the major source of your export is also your major source of your foreign earning. Now, and if your foreign earning is very low, that will affect foreign reserve. And when it affects your foreign reserve, it will also affect the value of your currency. So the consequences is numerous. So it is very unfortunate that we haven't done that, and we also know that it is the leadership failure in Nigeria that has put Nigeria in this situation. So Nigerians must put pressure on its government to ensure women have the oil sector will not be vulnerable to the volatility of the international market. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Prof. Okay, Fidel, let's come to you for you to weigh in on that quickly before my colleague in Lagos asks you his final question.
Yes. So thank you very much. I side perfectly with Prof on this because then when there's a price hike, you would expect that a major producer like Nigeria would also benefit in order to offset shortfall that may come from imports. However, that would depend on the efficacy and efficiency of production domestically. Because then, if you are going to just bank on the fact that hike to project that there's going to be some benefit, you are often going to be mistaken. Again, you're also going to look at what the revenue that is going to accrue to the state, as opposed to what producing companies that are involved in the industry also get. So a whole lot of things go into some of these things. Sometimes the gross revenue that you get may be very huge, but what actually goes to the government may not be that significant. So, in doing these projections, we have to manage our expectations so carefully so that we don't think that as long as we are having international hikes, it's going to lead to some boom, some oil revenue boom for Abuja, and that could be very very tricky in do the total analysis of this. However, however, I believe that Nigeria. Recently, we had a private sector person, establishing an oil refinery. Now, if this downstream um, activities are able to stabilize or are intensified, we are going to have a lot of value addition within the economy. So when these crises happen, the government can base on these activities to really insulate itself from the shocks that may emerge from such international uncertainties. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fidel Amakia Owusu, and Prof. here in the studio weighing in on this conversation, the impact of oil and non-oil producing countries, and of course, the geopolitical interests and trade disruptions. We've looked at all of this, and gentlemen, our time is so far spent. I must say a special thank you to all of you for your time on this occasion. Thank you so much. We will advance, Mono, I'm sure you agree with me that we will advance this conversation. It's not one that we can finish in a sitting.
And I'm sure Yemisi
yes.
and her team on the business department on LN 24/7 will be working to unpack this during the week.
Absolutely, absolutely. But before we go, you know, we run a poll, we talk to the public and also sample their opinion on each of the topics that we roll out here. But on this conversation, the opinion poll, you know, asks the question, can Nigeria benefit from rising oil price due to this Israel-Iran war? Go to our social media handle and participate and throw in your perspective on this. Mono, we have to go.
and also Dr. Felix, who, due to the connection, we could not really get conversation out of him.
Absolutely.
But, well, it's been nice doing you, Emenike.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Abuja. And thank you so much once again to our guests on this occasion. Mono, that will be the size of this morning live on this Monday. And I do believe that we've been able to put our viewers in the proper frame for the big Monday business ahead of us. And of course, for the rest of the week. Thank you so much, Mono, from our Abuja studio on this occasion. Thank you, Mono. All right. Is my name. We will continue, same time next week when we return with another edition of your Monday edition on This Morning Live. But join us again tomorrow for yet another interesting, discussion in the education sector. Until then, we say keep watching LN 24/7, and there is much more for you. Bye for now.